Democrats moved to expel pathological liar, fraud, and criminal freshman Republican Congressman George Santos from the House of Representatives, but it was blocked by every single Republican. Intrigued? Then click that like and subscribe and enjoy the video. So the long and labyrinthine and perilous story of Republican freshman Congressman George Santos continues. Okay, as a refresher, this is a guy who ran for office as a Republican in the November 2022 midterms, and Republicans touted him as both a political and social victory. Political because he flipped a district, Long Island, in New York, that was previously held by a Democrat. So it was proof to Republicans, to their voters, like, see, look, New York, which is this, blue bastion, it's one of the bluest states in the country, it's not impenetrable. Republicans can gain ground there, so it was seen as a political victory. It was also seen as a social victory because George Santos was an open homosexual, so it was kind of proof that the GOP, at least this is how they pitched it, was moderating in terms of their social politics. Hey guys, we're not homophobes because we backed and supported and got elected an openly gay congressman. So that's the second victory. And he was inaugurated in January 2023. But in between his election victory and inauguration, and even to this day, investigative reporting has uncovered one fact check after another about George Santos. He's lied about pretty much every key biographical detail that he ever conveyed to his constituents during the election. He lied about his work history. He lied about his history of philanthropy. He lied about his education. He lied about his faith. He lied about his heritage. At one point, he claimed that his relatives were Jews that were persecuted by the Nazis, and that he himself was Jewish. And then he later clarified, after it was determined he was Catholic, that he never meant that he was religiously Jewish. He just, as a Catholic, he empathized with Jews, so he was Jew-ish. So it's been one fact check and debunk after another. He's a pathological liar par excellence. He's up there with Donald Trump, and he's been reviled by many in his own party. And he's also under multiple investigations, state, local, federal, and international. And there's an international investigation for financial misconduct open in Brazil. Okay, so this guy is a scandal and a half. He's disgusting. He's appalling. He's extremely unethical. Shame on him. And Democrats made a bold move. After all this, months of investigation and months of scandal and months of public backlash, they actually put forth legislation, even though they're in the minority, to expel George Santos from Congress based on his misconduct, based on his history of lying, based on his probable defrauding of his constituents, and based on the fact that at least even recently he confessed to stealing checks in Brazil to purchase clothing. So he's engaged in theft, and that was after lying about it. Of course I didn't do any crimes in Brazil. What are you guys talking about? But then as part of a plea deal, confessed to it. So he even lied about it. So Democrats put forth legislation. Look, this guy needs to be kicked out. And just on party lines, this bill had no chance of making it through because, again, Democrats are in the minority. But what it was a good political challenge to Republicans. Like, hey, look, this guy is scandalous. As a matter of fact, 80% of his own constituents want him to resign. 80% of George Santos's own constituents want him out of Congress. So Democrats rightly put the pressure on Republicans. All right, put your money where your mouth is. You're the party of Jesus Christ. You're the party of family values. You're the party of personal responsibility. Many of you have actually said he should resign. All right, he's not gonna. So let's see how committed you are to your ethics. Let's get him out of here. Let's expel him. And the motion failed. 204 Democrats voted to expel him. 7 of them voted present. We'll get to that in a second. But every single Republican, including the ones who have demanded that he resign, voted to protect him from expulsion, and have actually referred it to the Congressional Ethics Committee. But as Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman points out, George Santos has already been referred to the Ethics Committee back in February. So Republicans are saying, whoa, we can't expel him. My God, we need the Ethics Committee, which, by the way, is effectively a graveyard because it takes forever to get anything done there, and it has very little teeth. We need to refer him to the Ethics Committee. Well, buddy, he's been referred to the Ethics Committee for 3 months. So, basically Republicans are spinning this like, hey, we're doing something about it, when in fact it's already been done. There's just been no action taken. So yeah, it's a pretty transparent attempt by Republicans to shore up their votes because they don't have much of a margin in terms of their majority, right? And their majority is like a gaggle of cats, right? Kevin McCarthy is trying to herd cats because many within his caucus despise each other. Moderate Republicans, the Freedom Caucus, whatever. It's chaos there. He needs every vote he can, including from pathologically lying frauds and criminals like George Santos. So 7 Democrats, as we said, voted present. 5 of them are on the ethics committee. So that, as much as it annoys me, I guess it kind of makes sense that if any Democrat was not going to vote against it, not for it, but just kind of be neutral on the subject, 5 of the 7 are on the ethics committee. I can at least understand that. And then there were 2 others as well who voted for it, which I don't understand. But I also want to play a clip here from Richie Torres, who is a congressman who kind of makes the case here in this clip very succinctly about why Democrats did what they did and why Republicans should vote to expel him. So let's take a look.
Then you should be willing to call upon your own leadership. Speaker McCarthy has said that George Santos is entitled to the presumption of innocence. George Santos has since pleaded guilty to theft in Brazil. And so my question to Republicans, are you ready to expel him? There are House Republicans, including in New York, who are sufficiently convinced, who are so sufficiently convinced of George Santos's wrongdoing as to call upon him to resign. And so I have a simple question for those Republicans. If you're willing to call upon George Santos to resign, then you should be willing to call upon your own leadership to expel George Santos.
Richie Torres is absolutely correct. Yeah, if you want him out of there and you think he should resign, then fundamentally, when he won't resign, there's not much of a leap there from demanding his resignation and then when he refuses to comply, even though 80% of his own constituents want him out of there, then it's really not much of a leap for you to pressure your own leadership to push him to be expelled or to back an expulsion motion. But again, at the end of the day, what this proves is that moderate Republicans who, they're not stupid, right? And they're not completely without it. Like, they have an ethical framework. They understand that what George Santos did was wrong. That's why they're calling on him to resign. But at the end of the day, it's not the absence of ethics per se for some of these moderates. It's the fact that their ethics takes a backseat to political expediency. So again, people like Nancy Mace and Don Bacon and so on and so forth, these so-called reasonable Republicans, at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, they back their caucus. Even when it comes to backing morally reprehensible people like Donald Trump and George Santos. So lesson learned, you can't count on the Republican Party in the modern day to do the right thing, even though they recognize what the right thing is. So we'll see where this goes with George Santos, but I'm sure this is not the end.